Hi, this is Representative Ed Narain, Florida House District 61, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government, and we have Edwin Narain with us today, District 61, brand new to the legislature, and filling some, they're petite shoes, but they're really big shoes as far as I'm concerned, because you're replacing one of my favorite people, Betty Reed.
They are absolutely big shoes, and I joke about that. I joked about it on the campaign trail, and when I went to Tallahassee last month, I found out how big those shoes really were. So you're absolutely right.
Her story, those of you who don't know it, I'm not going to tell it again, but her story would make a movie. I mean, she is a fabulous lady.
You know, she is a tremendous woman. She's done a lot for the district. There's some people who says, oh, Representative Reed was just a little too quiet. But you know what? Her fingerprints are all over this district, and in fact, all over the city. Just last year, she was able to bring back $200,000 to the CDC of East Tampa, and that's going to make a tremendous difference in the ability to create green jobs.
I hated to see her leave the prison.
Oh, yeah.
When she was on the prison commission. That was something she was really making strides on.
Well, just like I feel, we're both anti the privatization of prisons. I mean, it's wrong.
Me too.
At some point, you're putting people into a system in which you're trying to just turn a profit. But, like you said, she's got some very big shoes to fill, and I plan to be as outspoken as she was, maybe a little bit more so on issues, related to personal responsibility and private prisons, and especially the economic piece, given my background.
Representative Narain, do you mind if I call you Ed?
Oh, that's fine. Please.
Ed, let's go into a little bit of your background and who you are and where you come from. I understand you just graduated from law school, is that correct?
That's correct. I was able to achieve a lifelong goal. Graduated from Stetson University College of Law just last December, in fact. I'm a graduate of the part-time program that they started many, many years ago. Also honored.
How long did it take you? I was 10 years in night school.
It's a 4-year program.
4-year.
I was able to do it in 3.5 with my wife's blessing and support.
Okay.
So we did a semester early, which was great. I received the Dean's Award at graduation. So
wonderful. And you worked a full-time job along with it, correct?
That is correct. I'm an area sales manager for AT&T. I've been with the company for 12.5 years. It'll be 13, I think, in April. So it worked while working full-time. I have 2 young daughters. As a matter of fact, my youngest was born in the middle of law school.
Oh, really?
So that was an experience.
Most children are born in the hospital.
That's a good one. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she was born at St. Joe's, one of our favorite hospitals. And then about 4 hours later, I ran out to a competition they were having at the school and ultimately ended up winning the competition.
Mock court?
Yeah, it was for a appellate review competition.
Wow, isn't that neat?
So she was my lucky charm.
A lot of people say that you just can't do it today, but you're a person who's done it.
Well, I think it takes a tremendous support system. Like I said earlier, I'm blessed. I've been married for 8 years. My wife, from the time we met, she always knew I wanted to go to law school. She supported me while I was working on my master's, on my MBA. And she's just one of those people that said, if you want to do it, honey, I'll back you. We have some great in-laws that live here in the area. Anytime we needed them to come watch the kids, they were able to do that. And of course, my parents, my friends, it really was a community effort to get me to where I am right now. So it's possible, but you've got to be willing to work and sacrifice a lot.
And family is important. I'm glad, especially being an elective office.
Oh, absolutely. That's the toughest part, and it's the greatest part. Getting sworn in a few weeks ago, I was able to bring my dad down to the House floor. And he's someone who, from the time I was 3, used to talk into my ear about politics. And to have him sit, in a chair on the floor in the legislature where all these great decisions get made, I know for him it was important, but for me it was really special to see him beaming with pride. And my daughters, while they're young and probably don't understand the full impact of it, one day they'll look back and
They know it's special.
They know something's going on. And so my hope is that, they'll either follow in my footsteps and choose to serve, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in politics, but choose to serve their community in a positive fashion.
One of the things that many of you watching really don't think about, but would know if you did, is this is a part-time job.
Absolutely.
That you have, which is required full-time.
That's correct. It is a
You're
part-time job.
never off the job.
You are never off the job. In campaigning, I always tell people there's a difference between campaigning and governing. Once you start to govern, you realize there are things you can do, things you can't do. Because you're one of 120, and in my case, one of 38 Democrats in the House of Representatives. But there's always a demand on your time.
And a freshman to boot.
And a freshman, I'm in the back row. So for me, my weekends are always filled with community events. Just yesterday I got an opportunity to speak to the Tampa chapter of Jack and Jill and welcome Kanika Tomlin. The vice mayor of St. Pete came over to speak to the kids as well. And prior to that, we stopped by the Tampa Bike Share program, and the kickoff for that,
Oh, yes.
that happens right there in the district at Waterworks Park. And before that, we were at church, where I sing on the praise team. So even on a Sunday, which is a light day for most people, being in an elective office, you tend to have a lot of things to do. But you know what? We're up for the challenge.
Everybody expects you to be everywhere.
That is correct.
Just that simple. And even when he goes out to dinner, or any of these people running for public office or in public office, they go out for dinner and somebody will walk up to you and say, I just want to ask you one question while your soup gets cold.
Mm-hmm. And it's part of the sacrifice. There's a trade-off to it. If you want to do good and you really want to serve, you recognize that to people you represent the last bit of hope. Before I came in here, actually, I was on the phone with a lady who's having some struggles with DCF, and she's been fighting this fight for a while, and she calls up and she says, Representative Narain, I understand you were just elected, but if there's anything you can do, I'm at my wit's end. And you get those calls. I had a few of those last Friday in the office where I met with people, and my heart breaks for them. And we try to do everything that we can for them. But you realize that this has never been about me. I mean, I could have gone about a corporate career and probably climbed the ladder at AT&T, but I've never done that. 20 years in Tampa, I've done everything I could in terms of serving on boards to help people, and this was just a natural extension of that.
By the way, let's give your staff a little push here.
Oh yeah, well, Dwayne Mallory and Patricia Givens, they're holdovers from Betty Reed's office.
Yes.
And the reason why I kept them is because I'm the new kid on the block.
And they know where all the bodies are buried.
Exactly. They know where the bodies are buried. They know where to bury the bodies now.
Yeah, they're wonderful people. That's why I want to be sure we give them a little credit.
They're definitely great people. Dwayne's been in the legislature. He understands things inside and out there. He's been a great help to me in Tallahassee. And Miss Patricia does a great job with our office. If anybody has any concerns about anything, she makes sure I get the messages, kind of keeps us on track. They do a tremendous job.
Let's talk about your employer.
Sure.
Without them, you'd be in deep trouble. Obviously, they're going to cut you some slack in order to be able to do this job, correct?
Well, I'll tell you this. The lines were very, very clear for me. There's a separation of when I'm an employee of AT&T and when I'm Ed Narain State Representative. And when I decided to run almost 2 years ago, I had a conversation with legal and HR, and we drew some very bright lines about things that I could do and things that I couldn't do. But I will tell you this. I am very proud to work for a very socially responsible company, a company that puts the needs of communities first. A lot of times, you don't hear about the things that companies are doing, but AT&T has made so many investments in high schools all across the country. Our biggest initiative is reducing the high school dropout rate all across America, because what we've realized is we're falling behind in math and sciences. We're not a telephone communication company anymore. We're a technology company. In order for us to be successful, that means we've got to have potential employees that understand today's language. And that language is no longer the old math and science, it's coding technology. And in order to do that, we've got to keep kids in school. So
I'm nodding my head like I'm understanding coding technology. I have no idea what coding technology is, people, but it must be important if Ed thinks it is.
It's extremely important. Almost everything that we do is IP, Internet Protocol based now. The idea of old landlines, being connecting, those days are over. Everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket.
But they have to cut you some slack to go to the legislature. You've got several months where you're going to be up there. And it's nice to have an employer that's socially responsible, that says, okay, one of our people has to do this. we'll let them do it.
Well, what they said to me is, Ed, you've got 4 weeks of vacation. Get to use it. When I was campaigning, I did some of that unpaid. I did a lot of that actually unpaid. So, we're not going to draw the lines between me and any other employee, but they definitely were supportive of me, and they're glad to see me in the position. And, we'll continue to work hard and hopefully represent the company, in a positive light while I'm representing the community in a positive light.
Being in the legislature for the first time, what are the things that strike you the most as a freshman going in?
Well, from the outside looking in, it was the partisans. You say, whoa, I've got some Tea Party Republicans here, I've got some really liberal Democrats here, and you're worried about where you're going to fit in walking into this. And last month when I was up there, everybody was so kind, everybody was so nice and so welcoming, and I said, wow, this is great. Exactly. I said, this is great, and I really hope this is how the process works. If it is, I think we're going to have a very successful first session. If it isn't, we're still going to navigate through. And, of course, there'll be mistakes that are going to get made. We hope to minimize those, which is why Dwayne and Patricia are there. But I do believe we're going to be very successful, and we're going to be able to bring some great resources back to the district that we need them. I mean, when you look at on a per capita basis and what people are able to bring home, District 61 is the second poorest district in the state of Florida. And that's a shame because,
really?
Yes, when you look at the development that's happening all around this city, and it borders up through District 61. I don't care if you're talking about light rail down the road or bringing in more jobs. In order to improve the city of Tampa and improve Hillsborough County, you've got to improve District 61. So I'm honored to have this opportunity, and I'm ready to go make that argument that we need more investment in this district.
What are some of the things you think would be good investments in that district?
Well, economic incubators are one. You've got areas like the Tampa Heights area that's on the comeback. You've got the East Tampa CDC that's doing a lot. You've got THAP over in East Tampa off of 50th. They're creating an enterprise zone basically for entrepreneurs where you can come in, and if you have an idea and you look, you want to get a business started, for example, for a small fee, you can set up a shop and share a secretary and get your ideas
sort of like
off
the
the
Shark
ground.
Tank.
Absolutely. It's with the government's help, a lot of private sector. Hillsborough Community College has just gotten on board with this. And it's actually an initiative that the CEO, Jeanette Bradley, and Mr. James Hammond, who's a longtime civil rights icon in this community, are supporting and pushing. And I really believe THAP has an opportunity to really transform the East Tampa community. I'm really excited about that.
What do you need to do that? What are the resources necessary? It's good to talk about incubators and all of this, but down to earth, what does it actually take to build one of these and get it off the ground?
It's going to take some collaboration. The land is there, the building is there. A matter of fact, the investment's already been made. They're already creating. I mean, if you go there now, they've got, I think it's
within
15,
District 61?
In 61.
Okay.
They've got 16 of those offices ready to go. Half of them are being used. There's a place where a mechanic is already on site. And so what we need is collaboration from other state representatives in the district to come take a look at this project and see how worthwhile that particular project is going to be. You also have the Neighborworks Initiative that the CDC is working on. That's going to be impactful for this area because you're talking about building affordable housing, but building it with the residents of the district for the residents of the district. So when you talk about putting people to work and really giving them jobs that are sustainable, I mean, these opportunities exist, and we've got some really smart people that are working on those. And I'm going to really make an argument to get some of my peers in the legislature to hopefully fund some of those projects.
In the facility you now have, that you say half of it is up and ready to go and the other half is not. If somebody out there, one of our listeners, has an idea, they want to start a stained glass shop or whatever, how do they take advantage of this? Where do they go?
They're going to want to reach out to Ms. Jeanette Bradley. I don't have her information in front of me here,
that's
but
fine.
if they look it up through THAP, THAP, and they'll get in touch with them, and they'll be able to give them all the information that they need. And the beauty of this is that for the young entrepreneurs, for this just starting out, maybe don't have a lot of capital, they're looking at subsidizing some of their ideas and their projects. So it's going to be the perfect collaboration of public and private partnerships before it's all said and done.
I really like the idea of people, you mentioned also people doing sweat labor and actually helping to build things. I guess it's one of the things I liked about the housing, when people were building houses and everybody going in and working together, even the people that were going to live there working on the house.
Well, absolutely. I think when people work in a community, when they put their hands into something, they're less likely to destroy it. People tend to value it more when they've been a part of it. And so, you know, collaboration is important. Teamwork is important. And we're going to see that, you know, under my leadership in the legislature. You know, I'm not going up there to beat up on people. I'm going up there to say, hey, we've got a district in Tampa in the middle of one of the best cities in the state of Florida that needs some attention. And so you've seen a mayor, and Mayor Buckhorn, who's gone into the Sulphur Springs part of the district.
I think he's done a very passable job up to this point.
He's doing a great job, and he's someone who he's taken on Sulphur Springs as an area, and he's really started to help transform that area by knocking down homes and building new ones. I'm a member of the Children's Board here in Hillsborough County, and just a few months ago, there was a workshop done, excuse me, to empower women in the Sulphur Springs area. You know, if you want to save young men, this has always been my belief. If you want to save young people, but young men in particular, you have to start by saving our young women. You have to reinstill the morals and values that we had in the past through them, because they have always been the gatekeepers. They grow up to be the big mamas that take care of our families. And so when that initiative was put on by the Children's Board, I mean, it was really powerful, because they didn't bring in nationally renowned speakers. They brought in speakers from the community.
Yeah, I really believe that's more important.
It's always more
because they can relate to people. That's what I'm saying with you. People can relate to the fact you've lived here your whole life.
Yeah, the majority of it, 20 years now.
Yeah, and you worked your way through school.
Yes, sir.
And your family supported, and you worked together to make it happen. So you become a viable voice in this whole mix because you did it. It's like me telling somebody how to have a baby. I've never had one, don't plan to have one. It'd be a medical miracle if I ever did, and an awful painful experience. So somebody like yourself that can go and say, I did it. All those people that tell you it can't be done are wrong.
You know what? There's a lot of naysayers. I don't care what your idea is. There's always going to be somebody that says, oh, that can't be done, because they can't see it for themselves. I'm a firm believer that with your dreams, be careful who you share them with, because there's some people that just live to snatch your dream because they can't dream on their own.
Without a doubt.
But there's a lot of people out there who are willing to support you. This whole state representative thing started for me a long time ago. It wasn't something that I had planned for me. It was something that I believe God had planned for me. But I sat down with 6 other people in my living room when I decided that I wanted to do this. And they were 6 very close friends of mine. And then my wife was included in that. And I said, what do you guys think? Can I win? And everybody in that room says, you absolutely can win, and we're going to make that happen. And the beauty of this is none of those people in that room were outside of the age group, so to speak. I mean, all of them were under 40, all came from different disciplines, different walks of life, and said, you know, we're going to put a committee together, we're going to put a team together, and we're going to make this happen. And, you know, we were blessed. Commissioner Miller, who's a longtime friend, advocate and mentor of mine, he came on.
He's been on the show. I like him too.
He's a great man. You know, I always joke that I've been following him my whole career.
Not a bad path.
Not a bad path. He was the first president of the student body, African American, in 1977. Here I come along 20 years later in 97. I was president of the student body, and my vice president happened to be African American. So we made history with that win back in 97. And I'm now sitting in a seat that he sat in 23 years ago. So I keep joking with him. I said, I don't know if I'm going to necessarily become Senate Majority Leader and then House Majority Leader and Minority Leader and all those things, but it seems like everything he's done to this point,
I think
I've
if you
kind of
want it
followed.
to be, it'll probably happen.
I don't know.
But you said something just a minute ago. He just happened to be African American. And I wish that we could get over the fact that that's the first one to do this, the first one to do that. Hey, it's an American, period.
I agree.
You know, I don't know what your roots, you were saying, came a long way to get here.
Oh, yeah. You know, both of my parents are immigrants to the country. You know, they're naturalized. I mean, I'm a naturalized citizen. But when they came here, you know, they instilled in us the idea that if you work hard, you can get anything that you want. And I'll tell you, I remember back in '97 when they told me that we were the first African-American pair in the state of Florida history to win those seats. I was disappointed because I thought by that point we had moved past that. And, like the president said last week in reference to Ferguson and some of the things that are happening, some of the attacks, the police brutality that we're seeing all across the country, at least coming out in videos and people's stories, is that this is not a black problem, this is not a white problem, this is an American problem. So I'm glad to see when people are saying, hey, we're willing to put race aside and address this the way it should be addressed as Americans. Unfortunately, there's still that toxic environment and people who choose to live in that. And we try to rise above it without forgetting, oh yeah.
You have to remember, there are people that make money out of riots.
There is a lot of money to be made out of partisanship, when you look at the news cycle, like we were discussing before. The 24-hour news cycle is something else.
It's the worst thing that's ever happened to this country. Yeah. The 24-hour news cycle. They have to make news.
You've got to do something.
Used to be, for those that are younger than I am, we used to get an hour of news in the morning, an hour of news at 6 o'clock at night, and that was it unless you stayed up till 11 and you got another half hour.
And
we knew all we needed to know.
In your opinion, you didn't get all the opinions with the news like you get today. Maybe Dan Rather every once in a while, Walter Cronkite on something really large would make a statement, but usually it was so generic that almost all Americans could buy in. Today, you just pick up a channel and it's anti this person but pro that person, and you flip to the other side and they're telling you the opposite story. There's no more straight news telling anymore.
Yeah, I liked it when they used to read me the news and I'd get to decide whether it was good or bad. And now they don't even do that.
That's correct.
Some of the channels, they don't even bother reading you the news. They just tell you what to think about it.
They tell you what to think. And that's also the danger in some of the partisanship we're seeing in the parties. And that's why when I got to Tallahassee a couple weeks ago, I was really surprised and glad to see everybody being so warm and welcoming. Because I don't believe that anybody sees somebody for the first time and says, that's a Republican and that's a Democrat and that's an independent and I know how they're going to vote. I think they see a person, they talk to a person, and you know what? We may not fundamentally agree on everything, but I bet you after a couple of hours, you and I could walk away from a table and hammer out something that maybe you didn't get what you wanted and I didn't get everything I wanted, but we have something that would be a framework that can help people.
The problem with that, and that's the way our country's always worked. Really, it's worked that way. But now, if you can't get it all, we're going to shut the government down. It's not the idea of working together to make a bill that's usable and right and pass is almost impossible. We have to make it so it's veto-proof.
It's unfortunate. And I'll tell you, in our campaign cycle, one day I was just driving and said, we need a campaign slogan. What's it going to be? And we said, people, not politics, because we refuse to be defined by any political party. We refuse to be defined in our thought process by any particular philosophy other than let's do what is right by the people who have elected me for this office.
Everybody do that, but you'd be amazed at how many people I have right on this show that we'll talk off stage and I'll say, why did you vote for that? Well, if I didn't vote for it, I didn't get funding for next time. That's a slope that I've watched so many really good people slide down. And I would warn you of it early.
Yeah.
Because there's a situation ethic here. Well, but if I don't do that, I don't get to keep the office. And if I don't I don't get to do anything. So I guess a little evil is better than not being able to do any good. That's scary.
It is scary, and I'll tell you what, honor before anything else. At the end of the day, I've got to be able to look at myself in the mirror. I've got to be able to explain to my children, because one day they're going to grow up and they're going to read stories, hopefully, about what their dad was able to accomplish for the state of Florida. And I don't want them to have to say,
I think you're the kind of man that can do that.
Well, thank you. Thank you
very much. And Betty
much.
Reed certainly was the kind of woman that did that as she went along, at least the best of my opinion of her and everything I've been to see. Would you like to take just a minute and talk directly to the camera and thank the people that helped you to get elected, and then tell the others you're still going to represent them too?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I do want to say thank you to all the voters who came out, both in the primary election and in the general election, and supported our campaign. We've got 97% of the vote in the general, which says that you all believed in me, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I don't let you down over the next 2 years. So thank you again, District 61. Thank you, Tampa, and I look forward to serving you well.
That's interesting. You got 97%. What was the total turnout? Do you have any idea what the percentage turnout was?
The percentage turnout in Hillsborough, I think, was less than 40%, which was disappointing because we We obviously had some high hopes for a better turnout, but I was running against a write-in candidate, so it was pretty strong.
Nationally, it was only 36%. The whole nation.
Wow.
And if you stop and think, this big wave they're talking about, the big conservative wave that came, you're talking about 19% of the people.
Right. Well,
So there's no wave. There's a lot of apathy. There's the wave.
I think negative campaigning tends to turn people off.
I hate it.
I saw it in my primary where a lot of people were disgusted with the direction that things went. And I think because we stayed above that, they supported us. And they supported us in a big way with 42%, even though there were 4 people running. So we're proud of the campaign that we run, and we look forward to running more clean campaigns in the future.
Well, I look forward to having you back on the program because
Thank you.
I think that a man of your caliber can do a lot of good up there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But believe me, they're looking at you as a Democrat or Republican when you walk.
Unfortunately.
From what I've talked about. But holding on to your staff, I think, was an excellent decision.
Thank you.
One of the things I've always said about term limits is that it puts staff and the lobbyists in control because the new person going in takes a short period of time at least to find the restrooms up there in Tallahassee.
It took me 5 minutes.
See, you're a quick learner.
It was a running joke on the campaign, but you're absolutely right about that. And keeping the staff has been a tremendous help already. And I'm looking forward to committee weeks. I haven't figured out what assignments I'm going to be given, but once I know what those are, you better believe we're going to go to work to make some good things happen for 61 and for the state of Florida.
I've got about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
If you could walk away with one thing from the legislature this year, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
It's got to be short.
Tough one. If I could walk away with one thing, that one thing would be enough resources to fund the 3 economic development centers that we're looking at.
And I think that's a good goal because if you get the economic generator running, things are going to be a lot better all the way around. Because jobs
Exactly.
are something that we have to have in every community. If you don't have jobs,
How do you get people
the
working?
community perishes. I just think that having you on is a great thing. Will you come back?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll be back. Thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Spotlight on Government. I'm Bill Hodges. You're unique, you're special, you're great. Tell yourself so often because you are, you know. We'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government, and it won't be long and I'll have you back right after you've gone up there and had a little time to work with them. I'm anxious to get your opinions as you come back.
Absolutely. I'll be
All
happy
right.
to come back.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Representative Narain.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the next show.